to bring any regime change in China, this question needs to be, अगर मेरे से अच्छा पूछो पहले क्वेश्चन, सपोज, ठीक है, चलो you ask this question. मतलब आपको क्या है ना, आपको एकदम जल्दी से आंसर नहीं देना है, आंसर देने के डायरेक्शंस ओपन अप करने हैं. चलो तुम पूछो मेरे से.
So should India induce a regime change in China? What are your views?
ठीक है, कोई भी, मान लो यही एक क्वेश्चन है, शुड वी ट्राई, सो should we try to induce regime change or not? First of all, we should be knowing that what exactly we want to do with China. And there can be a range of options. And the options have to match with our capabilities as well as what is the practical aspect of it. So very first thing is, my long-term view towards China will be, I will believe that you can change your friends, but you can't change your neighbors. And in the long term, we should have at least, if not a good relationship with China, then we should have some modus vivendi where the two countries can live in peace with each other. And the attempts of regime change, etc., may not be the option which India is capable of. I have no offense in saying so, because, and then we have seen such type of policies often proved counterproductive. So I would like to work with China with the very framework we have devised for our policies with the neighbors, and the very first framework has always been Panchsheel. And the Panchsheel, at times people do criticize that Panchsheel has been responsible for the India's suffering in 62 war, but I believe that was a long-term view that we should not be interfering in the domestic affairs of the state. And we should first understand that what is the root cause of the problem, rather than the selection of a strategy depends upon our understanding of the root cause. And as far as the root cause of India, China, or for any other country is always the trust deficit. Fine. So the trust deficit exists, and the trust deficit between India and China is for various reasons. And obviously there is a role of US in USA's geopolitics. There is a role of trust deficit. And even if we see that some of the recent incidents of incursions, etc., US angle, US geopolitics cannot be ignored. Now the border, obviously border remains the biggest, thorniest issue in developing the trust deficit. So I would rather focus on developing India's own deterrence capabilities. Fine, there are I will go for prioritizing the things. I may go for strengthening the border infrastructure, developing India's deterrence, along with, wherever possible, the scope for dialogue with China. And I think the template for my approach for devising any action will be containment wherever necessary and engagement wherever possible. तो आपको बहुत ज़्यादा ऐसे regime change, it has to be, ऐसे words होने चाहिए, it has to be based on very strategic calculation of our capabilities and the ends. इस पर नहीं देना है, but what we aim to achieve and how we aim to achieve. तो long term goal तो यही है, live in peace with neighbors. The second, and for that we need to strengthen the trust. The ideal condition is continue with strategic communications at highest level. But in a present scenario that we see a lot of things are happening at the geopolitical level, maybe that is not going to work. So in short term, strengthen the deterrence capability. ठीक है? और क्या question है आपके पास?
Some way, the way you answered is like how you were teaching us during the crash course, how we would answer any question, even in mains, that build up a story, how
तो
to.
हाँ, स्टोरी ही बताइए, आप बातें करिए ना उनसे, आंसर मत बताइए.
Okay.
जैसे अब इसका और क्या आंसर हो सकता है? विल यू गो फॉर रेजिम चेंज? अगर आपने आंसर दिया होता तो कैसे दिया होता?
Ma'am, should I answer? So, given the Indian foreign policy stand and our focus on democracy and our attempts at ensuring non-interference in the domestic policies of any nation, India should not go for a regime change in China. However, it is important that we recognize the crucial role of a neighbor like China and why being at peace with them and being on good terms with them is good for our nation.
मजा नहीं आ रहा. So you can say that each case is unique in itself, and what will be our strategy with Pakistan may not be with China, because the relative power also has to matter. But maybe these are the reports, but I don't think that there is any such official policy of regime change. Officially, I also strongly believe that we should stick to the guiding principles of our engagement with the neighbors should be Panchsheel, should be Gujarat Doctrine, fine, and Article 51 नहीं, बस यही गुजराल डॉक्ट्रिन और ये सब पे ही ज्यादा लिखना है. और क्वेश्चन पूछो. क्या? We are not capable in comparison to. नहीं, not at all. नहीं, but why should we be? Don't go for any confrontationist negative approach. And आपके पास बहुत कुछ है, like the time has changed, world has become so much interdependent. We are not living in an age where you can make hay when your neighbor's house is burning. And every country has its own unique identity and unique culture. Maybe India doing what US doing may not work. Fine, we have our own strategic culture, our own strategic thinking, our own vision about, and India has been actually the leader in putting forward an alternative vision for the world order. And if we go for any such things, that long-term vision is going to be affected. ठीक है, तो I मतलब don't support all these things. और क्या है? कोई और क्वेश्चन पूछो मेरे से. नहीं, ऐसे क्वेश्चन पूछो अगर आता है. What?
How do you see the India-Pakistan relationship in the future?
How do you see India-Pakistan relations in future? इसमें कोई आप लोगों में से बताना चाहेगा? तुम बताना चाहोगे? अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. How do you see India-Pakistan relations in future?
India-Pakistan shares a long history together, and present government has a policy of no terror with the talks. At the same.
But the question is, how do you see? You see.
Yes, I'm coming to it.
Okay.
And at the same time, we observe that there has been a back channel diplomacy, and I see.
ये सब नहीं, इसका स्कोप ही नहीं है. आप कैसे देखते हैं? ये है कि आप क्या चाहते हैं? आप क्या चाहते हैं? What do you see?
Definitely a stable Pakistan.
हाँ, ये आप क्या? Stable Pakistan क्यों? You want a harmonious, peaceful India-Pakistan.
Yes, because maybe the right now Pakistan has been going through.
But that's not the. अच्छा. हाँ.
जिस तरह से अभी जो रिलेशनशिप में ब्रेक चल रहा है, इंडिया पाकिस्तान इंडिया स्ट्रेटेजिक एंगेजमेंट चल नहीं रहे तो इन द अमृत काल में
how
क्या
do
होगा?
you see how do visualize the future of India and Pakistan? क्या इंडिया पाकिस्तान रिलेशनशिप के आगे क्या होने वाला है, ये क्वेश्चन है, मान लीजिए, ये बताएं.
So, ma'am, I think that there are a lot of stakeholders involved in India-Pakistan relationship, and some of the important ones being the terrorists, the Taliban, Afghanistan issue, of course, the US role in the subcontinent. So, I feel the future of the relationship between India and Pakistan is going to be determined by a lot of factors, and in my view, terrorism is one of the most important factor which will see our relationship, because like we have seen in past that whenever we are trying to engage with Pakistan, come closer to it, terrorists along with the armies and the ISI try.
It's a very single pointed. So the question is, where do you see India-Pakistan relation after 5-7 years and down the road? अगर ये एक क्वेश्चन है कि आप कहाँ पाएंगे इंडिया पाकिस्तान रिलेशन को, तो ऑब्वियसली यू कैन से that though not in case of Pakistan, but still I believe that I am over optimistic and I would like to be optimistic, and I believe that the relations, and I it may not, but I strongly desire that relations come back on track. However, the current scenario seems to be too complicated. Fine. And in recent past, there are some good signals that have emerged. For example, in terms of this agreement on this ceasefire line agreement, Kartarpur agreement. But international relations is so uncertain. There is nothing much that we can predict, but definitely if we do not talk, then the next step by law is bound to be the things are going to deteriorate, and we have to ensure that they do not deteriorate further, because South Asia is often known as one of the most dangerous places in the world. So it is our responsibility, India having a bigger stakeholder, we should try to do whatever is possible to ensure that the relations come back on the normal track, and foreign policy has to be very, very sensitive, and it should not become something managed by the media, whether on India's side or outside. We need a very cool-headed approach to understand the dangers and the implications, and we have to have a very long-term approach towards Pakistan also, and nothing but at least from our side we have to be very well prepared for any worst case scenario, and hence with Pakistan, of course, deterrence, we have to focus on strengthening our deterrence. That is going to be my first priority. The second thing is how we are going to bring the normalcy in Kashmir at fastest possible level, where I will focus more. And the next thing is wherever possible, we should also try to cooperate. And now, yes, we have gone for this back channel diplomacy, third parties like UAE, maybe our growing relations with UAE can also be helpful into that. So you can't say, can't predict, no one can predict what is going to happen, but the experience show that if relationship is not taken forward and it's allowed to stagnate, the things become worse. And considering India's stake and considering Pakistan almost a failed state, we have to do all necessary precautions to avoid any bigger tragedy on this subcontinent. And this needs to be done very, very professionally without getting affected by the media or and a very serious thinking needs to be done in this particular field. ठीक है, और बताओ. ट्रेड रेट मतलब क्वेश्चन ये है कि आप 10 साल बाद भारत पाकिस्तान के रिलेशनशिप को कहाँ देखते हैं. तो अब इसको किस तरीके से आप बता सकते हैं कि कहाँ देखते हैं. ये तो बड़ा अनप्रेडिक्टेबल है. तो आपके पास कोई तो थ्योरेटिकल बेसिस होना चाहिए ना देखने का. तो नॉर्म ये है कि अगर इफ यू विल नॉट टॉक देन थिंग्स विल स्टैग्नेट. तो अगर we have not brought the normals, आप principles पे बात करो. If normalcy is not brought back, we can be landed up in some greater calamity which we would like to avoid. Fine. So we can't do much about Pakistan, but at least we can do a lot about strengthening our internal security, our intelligence, our cyber security, our like the situation in Kashmir. We need to do conflict management, and I think with respect to Pakistan, conflict resolution may be a very distant dream, but do whatever is possible for conflict management, that it does not get transferred into something worse or something more calamitous. ऐसे कुछ बात करो.
To be the High Commissioner in Pakistan, what solution will you bring to solve the problem of POK?
If you were the High Commissioner, first of all, what are the responsibilities of a High Commissioner? Fine. So as a High Commissioner, obviously, the responsibilities is that Indian nationals, etc., and that is my first responsibility. But yes, I would like to know I would like to read the mindset of the people, their perceptions about India. I would like to sense that what exactly the people of Pakistan want. Whether their thinking is just frozen in 47 or the young generation is different, do they have different aspirations. So to make a policy, I think a High Commissioners, because we can sense the ground level situations, and after that we will be able to visualize what can be our approach. So as a High Commissioner, first of all, I would like to read the things very thoroughly, the mindset of the people, government, their plans, etc. And somehow, like, I may be conducting certain events, etc., for greater people-to-people exchanges. So my thing is to know. Even Sun Tzu says that you should know about your enemy. Read the scenario. So these are the first things that I would like to do. Okay, I would like to have such inputs because I am placed there. That inputs which can help the people sitting in the South Block to have something very, very reliable to make more practical, pragmatic policy. और क्या कर सकते हैं High Commissioners? तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते. Yes.
Another question on a different topic. Do you think that India's stand on the Ukraine-Russia crisis signals moral bankruptcy?
These talks?
G20 presidency has nothing to do with. We can do otherwise also, because India has its own stature, and we have been the strategic partners of Russia, and as well as we always had a good relations with Ukraine. So G20 presidency has nothing to do with that. Fine, we can do it otherwise. And yes, I believe that from India's side, we have tried to communicate India's perspective to both the countries and even to Russia. Now you were asking something?
Does India stand on the Ukraine-Russia issue signals moral bankruptcy at our end?
if Russia drops a nuclear bomb, first of all, if Russia drops the nuclear weapon on Ukraine, this is actually, matlab, you can say that any serious student of international politics understands that the nuclear weapons are not the weapons of the war, and like we can't expect country like Russia to commit any such mistakes, and I hope it doesn't happen at all, and I firmly believe that Putin is not so naive to do all such things. Fine. So these are some pressurizing tactics which Russia is using. Now, in case, the worst case scenario, if Russia does anything, I think we should stick to the principles. It's not a matter of who is our friend or who is our enemy. It's always a matter of principle, which has always been a part of India's identity. If something is wrong, it's wrong. Fine. So obviously, and India has always been at the forefront of the nuclear disarmament efforts, and and if we will not, if we tend to, I don't think that officially the government of India will ever dream of justifying any such acts. Fine, whether it was done by enemy or it is done by our friends. So we should rather like if Russia uses, pehle to ye hoga nahi. In case uses, yes, we have to take a principled stand on these particular matters, and we always believe that if peace is threatened at one place, no one is secure. And for both, not just in idealistic reasons, even for pragmatic reasons, this can, the moment India takes even a neutral stand in any such things, which is not possible, this can strengthen Pakistan's will to do any such misadventure. So for pragmatic reasons, for principled approach, as well as for any reason, we have to be completely, there are certain strong no's, and we should give this particular message loud and clear that don't expect any such misadventure. ठीक है, मतलब हम ऐसा कुछ करने वाले, आप प्रिंसिपल्स पर ही स्टिक करेंगे, कोई नहीं करेगा। रशिया को क्या कौन सपोर्ट करेगा, और रशिया थोड़ी करेगा। हाँ, मतलब we have to follow in such complicated situations. It is always better to follow a principled approach. Now, the way India has dealt with the Ukraine and Russian issue, we can't call it a moral bankruptcy. Because first of all, if you go, and especially the West cannot say so, because the West has never gone for a moral politics, and India has always gone for a moral politics. And in this fight, we cannot say that Russia is entirely wrong or West is entirely right. Ukraine is just a proxy they are using. We do have a lot of sensitivity with the people of the Ukraine, but this war is a bigger war between US and Russia. So obviously, we cannot put the entire blame on Russia. So pragmatically also, and the Western, if we see USA's that long-term hegemonic aspirations, it has time and again brought the world into so many types of challenges because of this war. See the rise, like increase in the rise of the prices of oil and gas and food security, and so many things have happened. And I think for India, taking a principled stand on everything is the best way to navigate through these choppy waters of international politics. Take a principled stand always. Okay?
Coming back to Pakistan, between
What Putin wants to, confrontations. What are their main national interests?
Their national interest is primarily USA's long-term policy is containment of Russia, and Russia is too much dependent on oil trade, and Ukraine is a very important transit zone. And if Ukraine comes under NATO, or if Ukraine comes completely under it, these are going to impact Russia's vital interests. And so, yes, Russia want to assert, and I believe every country has the right of self-defense. We should be seeing through the angle of a genuine desire on the part of Russia for its self-defense. And since the end of Cold War, US has never come out of its mentality, and US has continued this policies of containment. So every country, if this had happened with India also, suppose US or China wants, we also need to think that suppose China brings its forces in Nepal, how are we going to react to it? Okay, so they have all right, and every country, when UN Charter recognize every country's right to self-defense. But yes, Putin has taken the extreme measure. However, he has been compelled to do so. Even before taking this extreme measure, he has written to the US as well as that if they will continue with those, the repercussions will have to be such. There was no other. West has not left Russia with any other option. This is what I believe.
When war will end?
That no one can say when war will end. Okay. So for war will end, obviously international community has to put pressure, and not just on Russia. You also need to put pressure on US. You need to put pressure on the West. We can't say when war will end. Either Russia will become too bankrupt, the way Russia had to withdraw from USSR. But I believe every country or person like Putin would like to defend the country to the extent possible. मतलब हम क्या करते अगर US वाले यहाँ पे ले आएंगे forces?
Ma'am, as per your expertise, where do you see this war is going? That Zelensky is in USA, and US has promised an aid of $45 billion to Zelensky, and that would empower Zelensky to
because वो
do
तो
the
वो
role for more than 1.5 years, for 2 years in the down the line. So where do you see that this war is going? What would be the possible scenarios?
where war will end?
Yes.
The war will end only. The one thing is when Russia becomes completely bankrupt, because the way we see that US doesn't seem to be in any intention to end this particular war, because no one is actually trying to end the war. Okay, so neither Russia nor China, they want that war should prolong. And for Russia, it's a matter of their existence. It's an existential crisis. US policies have created an existential crisis for Russia. And when the existential crisis, you don't worry about public opinion, you will not worry for anything, because you have to protect your country's core national interest. It's not that what Putin has done and how innocent people have suffered needs to be justified. But obviously, the West, I strongly believe West has not left any option for Russia. And that may be one of the reasons that India has tried to go for a very balanced approach. And I beg to disagree that it's a moral bankruptcy. It's a pragmatic balancing between the conflicting interests, or in a complicated situation. You had a question. Yes.
Ma'am, it was in context of Pakistan. Between Shehbaz Sharif and Imran Khan, which will be a lesser of a devil for India?
Which is?
Lesser of a devil for India.
Devil.
Yes.
See, as far as their domestic politics is concerned, they may keep on guessing who will be better for Pakistan. But as far as India is concerned, I believe that there is hardly any difference, whether it is Shehbaz Sharif or Imran Khan, because their India policy or their entire policy is so much governed by their army. Fine. And in that context, it will not make a difference, so that the prime ministers are just the puppet rulers. So ultimately, it's a Rawalpindi that matters. And now I believe that Pakistan is internally so weak that Pakistan's policy can be strongly shaped by China. And Pakistan does, we have to find out the spaces where we can increase our influence, and maybe strengthening our relationship with UAE seems to be the best bet for me in the present scenario. Keep on consolidating the relations with the Gulf countries. तो इनके लीडर से क्या ही फर्क पड़ता है when they are puppet regimes? नहीं, that you can't make a generic rule, but as far as Pakistan is concerned, ठीक है, तो Pakistan is all about. नहीं, ऐसे नहीं करना है ना, स्ट्रक्चर थोड़ी वो है, हर जगह थोड़ी लीडर नहीं रोल प्ले कर रहा है, पाकिस्तान में नहीं कर रहा है, और पाकिस्तान में लीडरशिप तो आर्मी के हाथ में है ना, तो इन लीडर से कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. क्या in context of Bangladesh and Nepal? No, you can't say so, because in their countries are not governed by a particular army, and I think they do have a very vibrant politics. Fine, so their leadership matters. For example, in Bangladesh, which party is ruling will shape the prospects of India-Bangladesh relations. And Nepal's politics is actually very, very internally divisive politics, and it changes in seconds. So as far as Nepal, we need to have a very, like, each case is unique in itself. ठीक है? So with Nepal, we need to have a different approach. We need to have a different approach with Pakistan.
I'm just generally asking, should we refrain from, or should we try to use theoretical concepts while giving these answers?
If you know the theoretical concepts, because only on the basis of theory you can analyze. What will be the basis for you to discuss the things? Okay.
Ma'am, there was a question. Can or should...
और जैसे नेपाल आए, तो नेपाल में चूंकि बहुत internally fluid है, बहुत divisive है, I believe the mantra for India is, let's not try to micromanage, wait and watch, but have a close watch, and don't allow them to gain any bargaining on India. So let's wait and watch, and don't muddle up, don't allow ourselves to be used by these politicians.
In context of Pakistan, like if they ask, considering Bilawal Bhutto's recent remarks and OIC chief's visit to POK and continued use of terrorism by Pakistan, should India maintain its stance of no talks with terror? And is there a hope of revival of relationships? If they come up with such a question, then a realist answer should be given or diplomatic?
नहीं, जैसे पहला आपका क्वेश्चन है, जो लास्ट बोला था, should India hope? क्या अभी आप
Last time I asked that, is there a hope of revival of relations considering these recent events?
So I believe that anything is possible. ठीक है, and we can hope, and we have to be optimistic, because we can't turn pessimistic, because pessimism is going to cost us more dearly than being optimistic. ये तो पहला है, आप हमेशा anything is possible, and I believe that if France and Germany can be together, India and Pakistan can, and this is what I would like. एक तो ये बोलो, second क्या था आपका?
Bilawal Bhutto's remarks.
Yeah, actually, this was not expected, that of a stature of someone who is in the official capacity, because you have to maintain a minimum norms. It is not that you are talking in your drawing rooms and all, like you are talking something about the leader of a country. So that was, and even people in Pakistan also have objected this mannerism. So you can say so. और क्या था आपका question?
OIC chiefs visit to POK.
They'll keep on doing. They will keep on doing. Every country has its imperatives. Fine. But what Pakistan, our policy cannot be reaction to Pakistan. We should have our own independent thinking that what exactly we want to do and continue with this particular policy with all the challenges, because there are stakeholders who would not like to have the normalization. ठीक है, तो तुम कह दो कि ये तो events हैं, events should not be impacting, foreign policy should not be reactionary. Even in political science we have studied that foreign policy is a decision making. Fine. And decision making is like not a problem solving. It can't be reactionary. It has to be long term. We have to have a definite roadmap how we are going to affect it. And obviously there are people who would not like this thing to move on, and not just certain sections in Pakistan, vested interest in Pakistan, even maybe China will create a problem or US may create a problem, but we have to have a clear view and how much calm and composed we can project ourselves. We have to deal with the situation very maturely. Okay, it can't be like instant coffee and action, reaction. Then we are letting ourselves to be driven by those who would not like normalization should come back.
Definitely optimism is required, but if we actually see the way foreign policy is going on from our end, like no trade diplomacy, no cricket diplomacy, even talks are held very rarely.
But it is not completely, it's a glass half filled and half full also. Fine. So we should also look at Kartarpur corridor. We should also look at ceasefire agreement. And even this thing happens if with Pakistan, it's not something mean. It is not something less. We have to give this particular message also, like even the public from both the sides, they should understand that even these things are not a minute achievement. And with Pakistan, I think P for Pakistan and P for patience for India.